Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel, thank you. Today is explanation of Martial Universe episode number 29 based on novel. So let's start. None of them had expected that Lin Dong could actually survive after being hunted down by 5 half-step to Nirvana stage demonic beasts. Those were 5 half-step to Nirvana stage demonic beasts. Everyone in the battlefield and even those half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners' expressions changed. That was because everyone knew that if they were in his shoes, there was no way they could return safely. However, right now, Lin Dong not only managed to shake off those 5 half-step to Nirvana stage demonic beasts, he was even able to return safely. The shock caused by this sight was not a small one. The first ones to recover their senses were Mo Ling and the rest. They were the ones who knew Lin Dong best. Even though they were slightly worried when Lin Dong volunteered to lure away those 5 half-step to Nirvana stage demonic beasts, they did not despair like the rest. That was because they knew that Lin Dong took risks that he was confident in. Since he volunteered himself, it indicated that he had the ability to tackle the problem. Therefore, when they saw Lin Dong resurface, delight surged into their faces. However, they were not stunned like the rest. Yuan Mo Ling and the rest celebrated in delight. Mo Ti and the rest finally recovered their senses. As they stared at Lin Dong, it looked as if their eyes were about to pop out. After stuttering for a long while, they were still unable to mutter a complete sentence and they looked extremely slick and comical. Oh my god. That fellow is actually alive. What dog shit luck is this? After being chased by 5 half-step to Nirvana stage demonic beasts and jumping right into the demonic horde, he is still able to survive. That kid is truly blessed by the heavens. Hee, it seems like Jin Mu's plan has failed. Someone has returned to collect a debt that remains to be seen. There are 5 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner on Jin Mu's side and based on my intel, they are far more powerful than Mo Ti and the rest. Furthermore, it is reputed that Hai Shou is related to the Ling Yuan Empire. Therefore, this is a tough debt to collect. Amidst the whispers from the crowd, Jin Mu's originally bewildered expression turned grim. As he stared venomously at Lin Dong, he chuckled, "What a lucky kid. I can't even kill you after that." Standing beside Jin Mu, Hai Shou tightly furrowed his brows as he stared at Lin Dong. Moments later, he softly said, "It's a good thing he is alive. I was worried that if he died inside the demonic horde, we would lose his soul treasures." Even though Lin Dong's appearance shocked him, he was not too worried. After all, there were 5 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners on their side. Therefore, were they afraid that Lin Dong could overrun them? "Brother Lin Dong, you are going to be the death of me." Right now, Mo Ti had calmed himself down. Promptly, he walked over to Lin Dong before he softly said, "So, what do you plan to do now?" Mo Ti's words evidently indicated that he was asking for Lin Dong's opinion. Even though he barely knew the latter, he knew that he was not a man to be taken advantage of. Furthermore, Jin Mu and Hai Shou's actions tonight were simply too despicable. However, even though he was outraged, after calming down, he began to calculate the difference between their side. After glancing at those 5 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners, he finally concluded that they were indeed more powerful than them. Tonight, Jin Mu must die. When he saw the killing intent flowing in Lin Dong's eyes, Mo Ti's pupils gently shrunk. Promptly, he knew that there was no way to peacefully conclude the night. "Lin Dong, since you are lucky enough to survive, you should treasure your life. Don't dream of making any stupid moves, as it will only result in your own death." Jin Mu also detected the killing intent in Lin Dong's eyes. Immediately, his eyes turned cold as he coldly shouted out. Lin Dong's face was calm and he did not reply. Then, he took a step forward before his heavenly crocodile bone spear immediately appeared in his hand. Meanwhile, his killing intent finally gushed forth and alerted everyone to his intentions. Gush! Everyone nearby immediately retreated and left a large circle between them. Everyone knew that there was going to be another earth-shattering battle tonight. "Lin Dong, since you insist on digging your own grave, don't blame us." A formidable cold glint flashed in Jin Mu's eyes. Standing beside him, Hai Shou and the 3 other half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners also took a step forward. Instantly, 5 powerful auras erupted forth, and it was shocking enough to cause one's expression to change. Bullying others using your superior numbers. Do you really believe that we are afraid of you? Mo Ti coldly snorted, before he brought along the Tang Xian duo and walked out. They had no intention of backing down. When Moti and the rest made their move, the atmosphere in the battlefield instantly turned tense. In that case, let's go. When that final word left Lin Dong's mouth, that tense atmosphere instantly exploded. Behind him, a figure directly transformed into a black shadow. Then, formidable bone shadows transformed into a flowery spear dance as it swept towards Jinmu. I was caught off guard the previous time. Do you really believe that you can accomplish the same result as before? When he saw Lin Dong charging towards him, Jinmu coldly shouted out, before a formidable Yuan power shockwave swept forth from within his body. Then, he directly clashed against Lin Dong. When that savage Yuan power shockwind swept forth, a cold glint flashed across Mo Ling, Mo Ti and the rest's eyes. Promptly, their figures flashed before they managed to completely intercept Hai Sho and the three other half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners. Boom. 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 After previously experiencing a massive battle, another violent commotion erupted in the mountain range. As they stared at that fearsome fight, troops from the other factions quickly retreated. However, while they were observing the fight, even though they were extremely outraged by Jinmu's actions, it had to be said that Mo Ti's faction was indeed at a disadvantage. After all, Jinmu's side had 5 genuine half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners, formidable spear shadows filled with an ice-cold aura, flew at a peculiar trajectory towards Jinmu's vital points. Meanwhile, the latter obviously knew the might of Lin Dong's bone spear, as his feet executed a mysterious footsteps. At the same time, flames lit up on the fiery red steel rod in his hand, as he countered against that spear dance. Lin Dong. Your 3-peak manifestation followers actually dare to fight against a half-step to Nirvana stage practitioner. You must be hoping that they can hold them off for a while. However, you must be dreaming. After my ally finishes them off, it will be your turn next. A spear and rod mixed with savage Yuan power continuously crossed blows in mid-air, while Jinmu pushed all the Yuan power in his body till his limit. Since he knew that Lin Dong was a tricky opponent, he had no intention of defeating him. As long as he could stall him and wait for his half-step to Nirvana stage allies to assist him, they could surround Lin Dong and easily slaughter him. Before they fall, you will be a dead man. A venomous smile suddenly emerged on Lin Dong's face. Promptly, a resplendent golden glow erupted on Lin Dong's skin. As that golden glow flowed, an extremely terrifying energy erupted forth, just like a volcano. An earth-shattering collision finally occurred under the stares of the crowd. Then, the crowd immediately saw that golden glow shrink instantly, before all the energy was concentrated on the tip of a golden spear, might of golden body. Crash! When they saw Jinmu's sorry figure, the entire area burst into an uproar. Astonished gazes turned towards Lin Dong's figure. Although some of the people here had heard of Lin Dong's fight with Jinmu in Yang City, a clear victor had not been decided at that time. Yet, the scene today made them understand exactly who was victor and loser amongst the two of them. Hai Sho and the other 3 who were fighting with Mo Tai and the rest, were likewise given a vicious blow to their hearts. Soon after, their expressions fluctuated a little. They originally thought that even if Lin Dong was able to contend against a half-step to Nirvana practitioner, he would at most draw against Jinmu. Yet, the scene before them had surpassed their expectations. In mid-air, Lin Dong apathetically gazed at Jinmu as he vomited blood and retreated, while the killing intent in the former's eyes did not weaken the slightest. Lin Dong had already made up his mind tonight. He did not plan on merely injuring Jinmu, but truly getting rid of this troublemaker. Previously, he had restrained himself, yet this only resulted in the unexpected disaster tonight. If Lin Dong still allowed Jinmu to live, there would definitely be trouble later on. This was something that someone like Lin Dong definitely could not accept. Hence, after blowing back Jinmu's figure, Lin Dong's body once again dashed forward. In a flash, he appeared in front of the Jinmu, whose aura was currently unsteady. The deadly spear in Lin Dong's hand tore apart the night sky and viciously thrust towards Jinmu's chest. Lin Dong, you dare. Jinmu was startled by Lin Dong's actions, as he quickly shouted out in a stern voice. In your next life, think about the consequences before carrying out any evil deeds. Lin Dong coldly gazed at Jinmu while blood continuously flowed out from his mouth. The former viciously jerked the bone spear, causing Jinmu to heavily slam onto the ground. Meanwhile, a faint bones breaking sound echoed out. The originally chaotic scene was now deathly silent. Countless pairs of eyes continuously turned towards Jinmu, who struggled a little before completely turning rigid, and everyone could not help but firmly swallow a mouthful of spit. They were truly unable to imagine that Jinmu had actually died in such a manner at that fellow's hands. Such overwhelming battle power and viciousness. Then, their gazes simultaneously turned from different angles towards the figure hovering in mid-air. At this juncture, the pity and contempt from before had now quietly ceased to exist. Jinmu's death had likewise quenched the fire of battle for both sides. Mo Tai and the rest looked at Jinmu's corpse and swallowed. It was difficult to describe the shock in their hearts. Meanwhile, Hai Shou and the other three watched this scene with grim expressions. Moments later, the other three excluding Hai Shou suddenly backed away, while fearfully looking towards Lin Dong. Friend, we did not interfere at all in the matter from before, and will no longer have anything to do with it. Once these words were said, they immediately made their position clear. Jinmu had already died, and there was clearly no point for them to do anything more. They were not fools and would not offend the shockingly powerful Lin Dong over a dead Jinmu. When he heard their words, Hai Shou's originally grim expression became even uglier. Both himself and Jinmu were the main instigators of tonight's matter, and he had even drawn the demonic beasts over. Those three could back away from this matter, but he would perhaps face some difficulty. At this time, the time was nearing dawn. Faint rays of light shined down, causing the entire mountain range to become hazy. Lin Dong stood in the air and reached out his hand as a suction force sucked Jinmu's Qinquan bag into his hand. Lin Dong then turned his indifferent eyes to first look at the three fellows before slowly shifting towards Hai Shou. Lin Dong, what else do you plan on doing? Upon seeing Lin Dong look over, Hai Shou's scalp turned somewhat numb. His strength was on par with Jinmu, and since Lin Dong could kill Jinmu, he would likewise be able to kill Hai Shou. This matter caused regret to stealthily creep up in Hai Shou's heart. If he knew that Lin Dong was actually so ferocious, he would not have teamed up with Jinmu. However, it was already too late for regrets. No matter what, there were many people watching and he could only stand firm, go down and accompany him. Lin Dong's voice was flat and emotionless. He was similarly rather disgusted with this Hai Shou, hence he did not plan to be merciful. His figure moved, appearing in the sky above Hai Shou as the bone spear thrust out. An extremely deadly force ripped through the air, viciously flying towards the latter's head. Lin Dong, don't go overboard. When he saw Lin Dong once again attack with killing intent, Hai Shou furiously roared before hastily defending. Bang bang. Golden light flashed. This time, Hai Shou finally understood why Jinmu had lost so swiftly. Compared to a few days ago, Lin Dong's strength had risen once again. Under Lin Dong's attacks, Hai Shou was very quickly on the losing end. However, just as Lin Dong's lightning-quick spear was about to deal a fatal blow, an enormous force suddenly swept over from afar and forcibly pushed Lin Dong back several steps with a loud bang. This sudden force caused Lin Dong's expression to darken a little. Soon after, he lifted his head, only to find a figure floating over with the wind like a willow from a distance away, while a soft voice slowly echoed out in the area. My friend, to cut others some slack is to give yourself the leeway in time of need. I hope that you will let this matter go on account of my Lingyun Empire. Lingyun Empire. When that calm voice spread across the entire area, several people's expressions gently changed. Promptly, they turned towards the figure who had appeared beside Hai Shou, their eyes full of fear. That man was dressed in white and looked fairly handsome. There were cloud-like patterns sewn on his clothes, while a gentle and casual smile hung on his face. In terms of mannerism and appearance, he was not bad at all. Of course, what caused everyone to be fearful of him were not these, but rather, the streams of powerful vibrations emitted by him the instant he appeared. Compared to a half-stepped Nirvana stage practitioner like Hai Shou, the vibrations he gave off were much stronger. Lin Dong's pupils shrunk a little when this person appeared. He could also sense just how powerful the white-clothed man was. Lin Dong, that man is Ling Ji from the Lingyun Empire. It is reputed that once he accumulates sufficient Nirvana pills, he can officially attack the Nirvana stage. Furthermore, the Lingyun Empire is able to rival certain high-rank empires, and we cannot afford to offend them. Mo Ti's face turned solemn due to that man's appearance. Immediately, he approached Lin Dong and softly said. Lin Dong remained expressionless. He also knew just how powerful the Lingyun Empire was. However, that was not enough to make him feel a sense of respect like the rest. Though Ling Ji was quite powerful, he was not a genuine Nirvana stage practitioner. Even if they really fought, Lin Dong had no reason to fear him, brother Ling Ji. When Hai Shou saw Ling Ji appear, delight surfaced on his face. Before he could say anything, Ling Ji casually waved his hand. He somewhat peculiarly stared at Lin Dong, before he gently smiled and said, My friend, for the event that transpired tonight, it seems like Hai Shou may have been in the wrong. However, Jinmu is the real mastermind. Now that you have killed him, you should have relieved your anger as well. How about we let go of this matter? Ling Ji's voice was rather conciliatory. Previously, he had witnessed how powerful Lin Dong was. Based on his current strength, in addition to the might of his Lingyun Empire, Lin Dong was of little threat towards him. However, He did not want to make an additional enemy for no reason, especially at this juncture. Therefore, if it were not for the fact that he and Haisha went way back, he would not have stepped in. When the crowd turned towards the incoming figures, a series of whispers immediately spread out. Everyone knew that the two most powerful empires in Yang City were the Lingyun Empire and Great Yuan Empire. Lin Dong's attention turned towards that man named Liu Yuan. He had the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear, an extremely muscular figure. His palms were as large as a bear and he gave off an extremely formidable and oppressive feeling. Besides, from the vibrations that faintly emerged on his body, he was evidently at the same cultivation level as Ling Ji, and once he accumulated sufficient nirvana pills, he would be able to officially attack nirvana stage. Ling Ji casually glanced at Liu Yuan. With his intelligence, he could obviously detect the inflammatory intent behind his words. Both parties were clearly at loggerheads and the latter evidently hoped that their rival, the Lingyun Empire, would offend a tricky opponent. Of course, if he really followed Liu Yuan's wishes, he would not be called Ling Ji. Liu Yuan, I do not need you to interfere in today's matter. Whatever you say is meaningless and it will be better for you not to say anything. After he spoke, Ling Ji turned around and cupped his fists towards Lin Dong. Even though Lin Dong's words caused an itch in his heart, he chose to turn around and leave. After all, the Lingyun Empire was one of the top powers in Yang City, and usually, whatever he said and regardless of which empire, he would hardly encounter an attitude like Lin Dong. However, though he felt somewhat displeased, based on Ling Ji's intelligence, he naturally would not reveal it. What an arrogant kid. Why is Big Senior so courteous towards him? Yes. After our Lingyun Empire showed up, not only did he fail to apologize, he even dared to utter such words. After he turned around and walked off, some other elite Lingyun Empire members involuntarily grumbled. They were the elites in Yang City, and everyone had to respect them. However, Lin Dong's attitude tonight caused them to feel slightly outraged. Lin Dong is merely at the advanced manifestation stage, yet he is able to slaughter a half-step to nirvana stage practitioner. Can you do that? Ling Ji slowed down when he heard his subordinate's words, his eyes narrowing as he casually asked. When they heard his words, his subordinates were immediately at a loss for words. He is able to survive even after being hunted down by 5 half-step to nirvana stage demonic beasts in the middle of the demonic horde. Can you accomplish that? After glancing at Ling Ji and the rest's departing figures, Lin Dong retracted his gaze. When he saw the bewildered stares from the crowd, he knew that in the following days, no one would dare to offend him. Ha ha, this friend is truly impressive tonight. My name is Liu Yuan and I come from the Great Yuan Empire. Liu Yuan's eyes swept across Lin Dong's body, before he cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. Lin Dong. Lin Dong smiled. He knew that the Ling Yuan Empire and Great Yuan Empire were the top 2 factions in Yang City. In the past, he did not have the qualifications to befriend them. However, after tonight's events, they were now forced to treat him seriously. Based on Liu Yuan's smile, Lin Dong could sense that he wanted to befriend him. After all, no matter where you were, strength was the most important thing. In the following time, Liu Yuan conversed with Lin Dong for a short while, before he smiled and left. He, brother Lin Dong, you have a strong reputation now. Even the Lingyun Empire and Great Yuan Empire are impressed by you. When he saw Liu Yuan leave, Mo Ti smiled from the side as he enviously remarked. Lin Dong smiled, not too delighted by this fact. Though these 2 empires may seem invincible in Mo Ti's eyes, in his opinion, they were only all right. Therefore, he was not too surprised by Ling Ji and Liu Yuan's respectful attitude. Let's reorganize ourselves. Once daybreak arrives, we will have to continue our journey. After tonight's events, Lin Dong's words had unknowingly gained weight in their group. Therefore, when they heard his words, Mo Ti, Tang Xian and the rest smiled before they nodding their heads. Faintly, it seemed as if the nucleus of the group had shifted from Mo Ti to Lin Dong. The muscular-looking yet intuitive Mo Ti noticed this subtle change as well. However, he did not object to it. The charisma and strength that Lin Dong was enough for him to recognize that the latter deserved this position. As that large group slowly traveled, even though they had already survived an attack by the demonic horde last night, as they traveled deeper into the Thunder Granite Mountain range, the demonic beasts that appeared grew increasingly powerful. Therefore, this was no carefree journey for them, as the demonic beasts that constantly leapt out caused several problems for them. Lin Dong sat on Little Flame's back, while Mo Ti and the rest surrounded him just like fanboys. Meanwhile, there was no longer any signs of disdain in the elite Steel Empire practitioners' eyes. Instead, it was replaced by thick awe and respect. Lin Dong's actions last night have thoroughly impressed them. Brother Lin Dong, at our current rate, we should arrive at Thunder Granite Valley around afternoon. Mo Ti laughed heartily as he said. His face was filled with smiles. Along the way, several envious stares were constantly cast towards them. It seems like they were envious that he managed to find such a powerful ally. When he saw their envious stares, Mo-Ti evidently felt extremely pleased. This was because most of them came from other small empires that he had a grudge with. Lin Dong nodded his head. However, his eyes did not focus in front of him, instead he constantly turned to look behind him. After he accidentally discovered that mysterious faction last night, he knew that this trip to the Thunder Granite Valley would not be a peaceful one. Even though there were several men from Yang City, they were widely dispersed and they fought for their own sake. Therefore, they hardly amount to anything. Of course, Lin Dong was not the only one who was aware of this situation. Though many people understood it as well, it was a difficult matter to resolve. In Yang City, there were various factions. Even though they were no genuine high-grade empires, there were several mid-grade empires. All of them were geniuses in their respective empires, and it was impossible to make everyone submit with a wave of one's hand. In fact, even Lingyun Empire and Great Yuan Empire could not accomplish such a feat. If they met a genuine high-grade empire, this dispersed group would probably crumble immediately. In fact, if a Nirvana stage practitioner appeared, it would probably cause several empires to crumble immediately. Therefore, with so many powerful factions around, it would be quite difficult for Lin Dong to obtain the mysterious ancient key and heavenly symbol spirit tree. It is not going to be easy to obtain those treasures. Lin Dong gently sighed as he muttered to himself. Just as the men from Yang City quickly headed towards the Thunder Granite Valley, behind him, another large group of men stealthily flashed by. Compared to the chaotic Yang City members, they possessed strong discipline and teamwork, just as if they had been through intensive training. They were undoubtedly in a different class. Every empire is now searching for all sorts of treasures in the ancient battlefield. During this time, those fellows have been constantly tailing us. Previously, when we discovered a treasure trove, we were forced to surrender a share to them. Truly outrageous. Besides that man in black robes, another man said, "Big Senior, should we disrupt them?" There is no need. There is going to be a pretty large fight in Thunder Granite Valley. Though the men from Yang City are dispersed, they are still pretty good fighters. Furthermore, Lingyun Empire and Great Yuan Empire have powerful fighters amongst them. Therefore, we may not be powerful enough to repel them. At that time, we may even have to force an alliance with Xianbing Empire in order to chase away those Yang City men before we can hunt for treasures. That man in black robes casually said, "Amongst those men from Yang City, the only ones we need to be wary of are Ling Ji from Lingyun Empire and Liu Yuan from Great Yuan Empire. The rest of them are not worth mentioning. It's best to be prudent. Who knows if there are any powerful practitioners hidden within. Leave now. Let's travel using another direction and reach the Thunder Granite Valley before them." After that man in black robes spoke, he did not speak any further. As he waved his arm, he suddenly upped his speed. Surrounding him, all the other men quickly followed behind. Moments after that large group of men left, a large tree gently vibrated before a graceful figure appeared. Her beautiful eyes glanced lazily in front of her, before she pursed her red lips and smiled gently. "Really interesting. I never expected a mysterious ancient key to appear in this area." As that large group of men continued to travel, the Thunder Granite Mountain range was seemingly turned inside out as several demonic beasts were forced to come out. This led to much problems for the men from Yang City. Thankfully, with the passage of time, they went deeper into Thunder Granite Mountain range. Especially when the blazing sun was right above them, those densely packed men finally took a break. Then, streams of burning and greedy eyes stared right at that mountain col in front of them. Behind that mountain col was several treacherous mountain peaks. Those mountain peaks extended to the heavens and penetrated the sky. However, in the intersection point between these mountain peaks, there was an extremely large crack. Faintly, a thick mist emerged from within. Amidst that mist, a faint thunder roar emerged, and it was an extremely peculiar sight. That was a mountain valley formed by that crack, and it was Lin Dong and the rest's destination, the Thunder Granite Valley that held the mysterious ancient key. When that mountain valley finally appeared in front of their eyes, everyone who had worked intensively in order to reach this spot instantly cheered. All of them seemed really excited. Lin Dong sat on his tiger's back, and there were hardly any traces of emotions on his face. That was because he knew that arriving at the Thunder Granite Valley only signaled the beginning of the fight for the mysterious ancient key. In fact, what happens next was the most important. His eyes slowly swept across the treacherous mountain peaks surrounding him. Moments later, his pupils gently shrunk. Faintly, he could sense a few auras around him. "Let's go to the back." Lin Dong titled his head before he softly spoke to an excited Mo-Ti and the rest. When they heard his words, Mo-Ti and the rest were evidently stunned. Then, they turned to glance at one another. However, out of respect of Lin Dong's strength, they finally nodded their heads in agreement. Let's head inside. The men in front were already several hundred feet away from Thunder Granite Valley. At the same time, while Ling Ji and Liu Yuan's face was filled with excitement, standing at the back, Lin Dong's pupils violently shrunk. At this instant, the air in the sky suddenly erupted violently. Then, 100-feet-long formidable and icy-cold glint flashed by, before it flew with a terrifying speed and viciously slammed on the ground several meters in front of the men from Yang City. Immediately, the earth trembled, before a several hundred meters large ditch was forcefully ripped apart. This sudden commotion caused the men from Yang City to riot. Standing right in front, Ling Ji and Liu Yuan stared at this large ditch, before their pupils shrunk. Promptly, their faces darkened. I do not know which powerful man is blocking the way. Please show yourself. Ling Ji lifted his head before he shouted out. Go back to where you came from. This is not a place you should be at. Action. After Ling Ji shouted out, another voice slowly ricocheted across the sky. Meanwhile, after that voice landed, the temperature in the entire domain began to drop stealthily. Then, the crowd saw a figure hovered sailing along a gentle breeze, before he appeared in front of everyone's eyes. That figure was swaying along the wind, and he did not choose to activate his powers. However, a heart-palpitating vibration still stealthily emerged from his body, Nirvana stage. When they sensed that powerful vibration, Ling Ji and Liu Yuan's expression instantly darkened. Millennium Ice Empire, Hua Yun. You must have heard of us. That figure gently smiled as he said, Millennium Ice Empire. A commotion instantly erupted among the men in from Yang City, while thick fear flowed in their eyes. Evidently, many of them knew that it was a powerful high-grade empire, so unlucky. A high-grade empire has targeted this area. When he saw this sight, Mo Ti's face was grim as he grumbled unhappily. Beside him, Tang Xian and the rest's expression darkened. If it were only factions like the Great Yuan Empire, based on their current strength, even though they may not be able to obtain the best treasures, they could obtain something as well. However, if they met a high-grade empire, they may not even have any leftovers to pick up. After all, the gap between a high-grade empire and mid-grade empire is simply too large. Just the fact that they have a Nirvana stage practitioner is enough to deter them from making a move. Lin Dong also gently furrowed his brows. He knew that the men that he saw last night was not from this so-called Millennium Ice Empire. That was to say, from his perspective, he knew that there were at least 2 high-grade empires in the Thunder Granite Valley. Furthermore, this was all that he had seen so far. Nobody knew if there were any more secret empires, or powerful practitioners hidden within these numerous mountain peaks. It seems like this mysterious ancient key is truly attractive. Standing right in front, Liu Yuan and Ling Ji glanced at one another. Both of them knew how tricky this situation was. They had naturally heard of Millennium Ice Empire, and they knew that it was a genuine high-grade empire. Furthermore, they had a real Nirvana stage practitioner backing them. Compared to them, they were much more powerful. In mid-air, Hua Yun waved his sleeves just as if he had heard a joke. Instantly, a breaking wind sounded echoed out from behind him, before a large group of men dressed in white robes dashed forth and appeared behind Hua Yun. Following which, streams of formidable icy-cold Yuan power shockwaves emerged just like an icy-cold blizzard, before it swept across the Thunder Granite Valley and sent a chill down the Yang City men's spine. When they saw those imposing Millennium Ice Empire members, Liu Yuan and Ling Ji's pupils gently shrunk. They could detect that there were at least 10 half-step to Nirvana stage practitioners amongst them. Furthermore, all of their auras were extremely formidable, and they were all evidently skilled. Once they appeared, it immediately showcased the might of a high-grade empire. In fact, no faction in Yang City could match up against them. When they saw the Millennium Ice Empires line up, fear even emerged on the faces of some Yang City men. This caused Lin Dong to secretly sigh. These men were indeed dispersed. Even though no faction alone could match up against Millennium Ice Empire, if they really banded together, it would be quite troublesome for that Millennium Ice Empire, and they will be forced to compromise everyone, though high-grade empire is powerful. Do you remember how long we have planned for this journey? Along the way, we had to fend off the demonic horde and we have all lost countless men. Now that we are almost at the Thunder Granite Valley, are all of you going to become cowards and give up now? Liu Yuan obviously detected their reactions. Immediately, he turned around before his loud roar sounded out in everyone's ears like thunder. He was keenly aware that if the men from Yang City scattered off, they would lose the ability to fight against a high-grade empire. All of you are geniuses from your respective empires. The art of cultivation requires one to steal one's hearts as well. A soft-hearted man can never become a truly powerful practitioner. When they heard Liu Yuan's loud roar, even Lin Dong involuntarily raised his brows. Evidently, he never expected that this ape-like fellow could actually muster such a motivating speech. Evidently, his words achieved a pretty significant impact. At the very least, the men who were previously flustered began to slowly calm down, while their eyes glimmered. In mid-air, when Hua Yun saw this sight, he immediately narrowed his eyes. However, what caused the young city men's expressions to change was a man dressed in black robes, sailing with the wind before he landed next to Hua Yun. At the same time, an extremely formidable shockwave emerged from his body and caused several faces to turn pale. It was another high-grade empire and another Nirvana stage practitioner, Great Crow Empire, Wumo. When they saw that empire and powerful practitioner appear, a pained expression appeared on Liu Yuan and Ling Ji's faces. Though they could handle one Nirvana stage practitioner, they were powerless against two of them. Lin Dong stared at that man dressed in black, while he secretly sighed. It seems like they had finally appeared. Those were the men that he saw last night. Liu Yuan, what do you have to say now? Do you want to leave? Or do you want to fight? Hua Yun glanced at the Liu Yuan duo, before he casually smiled and said. Two high-grade empires standing in their way. Even if the men from Yang City banded together, it would be very difficult to stand up against them. Furthermore, the combined might of two Nirvana stage practitioners is simply too overwhelming. The men in Yang City descended into silence. The courage that had barely gushed out was now on the brink of slipping away after the appearance of the Great Crow Empire. It was not that they were cowards, but rather, their opponents were simply too powerful. Standing in front, Ling Ji's expression was in flux. Then, he turned to Liu Yuan before he softly asked, what should we do now? Liu Yuan was at a loss for words. Moments later, he finally said, if there is another practitioner that can handle a Nirvana stage practitioner, we can give it a go. When he heard his words, Ling Ji involuntarily pursed his lips. They were the most powerful practitioners among the men from Yang City, and they must combine forces in order to handle a Nirvana stage practitioner. Therefore, who else possessed such capabilities? Liu Yuan was silent for a moment. For no particular reason, his eyes suddenly turned to look behind him, before they glanced past the crowd and finally locked onto a young figure. Ling Ji was similarly stunned by his action. Promptly, he turned to look at that figure before he involuntarily said, do you want to ask him? Liu Yuan did not reply. Right now, he was at his wits' end as well, and he was simply desperately grasping at straws. As the temporary leaders of the Yang City group, many people immediately followed their eyes as well. In fact, even Hua Yun and Wu Yun, who were hovering in mid-air, were also shocked as they turned before their eyes locked on a young man. For a moment, it seems like even the air in this domain had frozen. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.